Welcome to our first digital media Photoshop tutorial. This is called the Melonhead. It's an oldie but a goodie. In fact, some of this tutorial actually comes from an older version of Photoshop, but the tools are still there. These are essential tools that you'll need to know how to use to cut out objects and images, which we seem to do quite often in many projects that we create. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab this image right here where I'm circling my mouse. These are all the images that we will need to create Mr. Melonhead. So we're going to right click on this image and I'm going to save image as. And you'll notice that I'm using a Mac, so this process will be slightly different for you if you're using Windows. And if you're a student, I recommend that you save this in your U drive in your digital media folder. To make things easy for us, I'm just going to save this to our desktop. I'm going to create a new folder, and this will be Melonhead, and I'm going to hit create, and we're going to save the fruits in that Melonhead folder. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and pull up my Photoshop and go File, Open. And I'm going to navigate to my desktop where I save that. You'll navigate to your U drive if you're a student. I'm going to look for that digital media folder and Melonhead right there. And then I'm going to open this up. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my layers panel in the right hand side of my screen. You'll notice that I have a little libraries tab open over here in my screen. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. So I'm going to say close tab group. So that makes my layers panel a little bit bigger. Go ahead and make this a little bit wider for you to see. Make it a little bit easier for us to work with. And then next, up here in the top, you'll see our tab where it says fruits.gif. That stands for GIF or GIF as it's pronounced. And the thing that we have to do first is, because it's a GIF, we're going to have to unlock this layer over on the right hand side. But because it's a GIF, it's actually not going to allow us to unlock it. So what we're going to have to do, and in fact, if you double click it, you're going to get that like noise that says you can't do what you want it to do. So the first off thing we're going to do, in our tools panel over here on the left hand side, I'm going to select the rectangular marquee tool, and then I'm going to select the entire selection there. And I'm just going to click and drag and release it. You notice that when I started my cursor, I started at the, above that selection. I don't have to get right there. I can start above it and I can end after it. So I'll do that one more time. So I'll click right here on the edge, select the whole thing, drag all the way down, and then you'll notice that it selects that whole thing. Okay. Then the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go up to Edit, Copy, and then I'm going to go up to File, and then New. And when you do a File New, after you copy it, it automatically copies it to the clipboard. And so that's the one you want to select. It's going to create our new document to be the exact dimensions of the one that we just copied. So I'm going to hit Create, and then I'm going to go up to Edit, Paste. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and Control Tab or Command Tab back over to our directions. And I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth here as I read the directions and then do the tutorial. At first, it's going to give us a little bit of a tool overview. And the first thing we need to do is, it says we're going to go ahead and zoom in. We'll do that. And then I'm going to do a couple things here. We're going to grab these blueberries. We're going to create the eyes first. There's a couple of steps that this tutorial doesn't have that I'm going to do, so please follow along with my tutorials to make sure that you make sure that you do these steps. So I'm going to go ahead and Control Tab or Command Tab over to Photoshop. I'm going to zoom in a couple times, so I'm at about 300% zoomed in. And then because we copied and pasted this into a new layer over here, it's already unlocked, so we don't have to worry about that. Good practice in Photoshop is I'm going to right click on this layer, and never mind, it doesn't show it. I'm going to click right in there so I can, there we go, kind of double click into where the name layer is, and I'm just going to call this base layer. And this is going to be where all of our fruit's going to be stored. You want to make sure that we build in layers so that way if we mess up something, we can go back and fix it later on, because it's pretty common to do that. If we don't create new layers, and it's a lot harder to go back and fix things. So down here, right down here in the bottom corner of our layers panel, you're going to see like a little new page kind of icon. Click that, and that's going to create a new layer. So now I'm going to click back on the base layer, and then I'm going to start by cutting out our melon. Okay. Now this melon here, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in so you can kind of see this melon shape is irregular. So this is going to be, we can do this in a couple different ways, and I'm going to explore those ways with you as we do this. So right here up on the top, you have what's called the lasso tool. And when you use the lasso tool is kind of like a free-form tool. So you can see that if I kind of move my mouse around, it's going to make, it's just making lines here. So as I circle all the way around, you'll notice that, oops, I cut off part of the melon. And if I went ahead and tried to cut this or move this to a new layer, as you'll see, I would cut out part of that melon. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control-Z to bring that back, and then hit Control-D to deselect. So the lasso tool is not the best tool to do this with. It's more of a free-form tool. Underneath that, you'll notice underneath the tools here, when you click underneath the arrows, you have a polygon lasso tool and the magnetic lasso tool. The polygon is a straight style lasso, and when you connect those together, it creates just straight lines of the selection. So that's not going to work. So I'm going to hit Control-D there. Underneath that one, you have the magnetic lasso tool, and what's cool about the magnetic lasso tool is it sticks. It sticks to things that you want to highlight. So as long as it selects the appropriate pixels, and in this case, because we have a white background and just the fruit there, it knows exactly what I'm doing. So this tool will actually work pretty effectively for selecting the melon head. So I'm going to go ahead and use this tool to do that. Okay, and once I get to the end there, you're going to see your mouse hit a little circle, and that's going to tell you that you've completed the path. So then I'm going to click my mouse, and then that will give me the marching ants selection. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to Layer, New, Layer via Cut. And so if you come over to here real quick, and I'm going to go ahead and take off that layer one that I created just earlier. So back up here real quick. I'm going to undo the eyeball to my base layer, and what you're going to see is we're just going to have that melon. And then when I click on that, I'm going to click my move tool, and I can actually move this around so I can position this where I want to work. You'll notice these pink lines that show up. That's telling me I'm in the center of my document, and that's where I'm going to drop it. I'm going to go ahead and expand this a little bit, make it bigger. So I'm using the move tool, and what I'm doing is I'm hitting the shift key and just dragging the corners of this image so that it makes it size appropriately, like what's called the aspect ratio. And then I'm going to go ahead and move it back to that center point. And then every time you move or use anything with the move tool, you have to hit the enter return key to accept those changes. Over in my layers panel, I'm just going to go ahead and hit the little eyeball button there so that disappears for a minute, and then go back to the base layer and then hit the eyeball again. So you'll see right now my melon is cut out and it's no longer there. There's a little bit of a remnant around the melon, and that's okay. That's usually what happens with like the lasso tool. And so I'm going to move on to the eyeballs. And the eyeballs are two different layers. It's the blueberry and it's the orange. I'm going to go ahead and start with the orange. And I'm going to click over here, and you'll notice that there's that rectangular marquee tool that we used earlier. Underneath that, there's an elliptical marquee tool, and that's the one that I want to use. I'm going to Control Tab or Command Tab over to our instructions real quick and kind of show you what it wants you to do. It's going to give you a little bit of tips on how to use this tool. And there's a couple you're going to get used to using your keyboard and your mouse at the same time. So you're going to always have one hand on your mouse and one hand on your keyboard, because you're going to need to use your shortcut keys or use other keys to use your tools effectively. Okay, so right here it's going to say selecting from a center point. Sometimes it's easier to make elliptical or rectangular selections by drawing a selection from the center point of the object to the outside edge. This is very true. Using this method, you're going to reselect the blueberry. We're actually going to do this with the orange first. So then I can create that as a new layer, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the blueberry. So what you want to do is click and begin dragging. Then, without releasing the mouse button, hold down Alt and continue dragging the selection to the blueberry's outer edge. Notice that the selection is centered over its starting point. When you have the entire blueberry selected, press or release first the mouse button and then the Alt Option key. Let's go ahead and see if we can pull this off. So I'm going to tab over and okay, I'm going to push the Alt button, kind of get somewhere in the center of that orange, and then I'm going to click and drag out. So you notice that it starts from the center of that orange, and if you don't get right in the center, you might have to restart your selection. And sometimes your objects aren't always perfectly circular. So like when I click and release here, I clicked and release at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control D, try this again, hit the Alt button, and click and expand. And let's see, release my mouse. There we go. So it's not quite the perfect circle that I'm looking for. So I'm going to hit Control D again. This just might take you a couple times. Notice that if I don't hit the Alt key, it's gonna drag from that point as the outer ring. Okay, so that's why I gotta make sure I hit that Alt key. And this is just kind of a guess and check here, since we can't really tell what the center point is of this orange. Don't worry if you don't get it all the way perfect. Shoot. Always do that. I always release the Alt key first before I release the mouse. There we go. So release the mouse button. That'll work. We're going to do the same process that we did with the melon. We're going to go up to Layer, New, Layer via Cut, and that's going to create a new layer over here. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure I rename my layers here. So this is going to be actually this is not an orange, this is a carrot, I apologize. So I'm going to rename this carrot. I can't tell if I spelled that correctly. And then same thing with the melon, where it says layer 2, kind of double click in there where that text is, and I'm just going to call this melon. Okay, so then now that if I undo that, see how that cuts out? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and undo the eyeball so I can see that I've already cut that out. And then I'm going to go on to the blueberry and use the same tool and hit the Alt key. Try to find the center of that blueberry. And then I'm going to expand out. And then select. Do that again. Forgot to release the mouse first before I release the Alt key. Release the mouse. There we go. Same thing. We're going to go up to Layer, New, Layer via Cut. And then just, So if this happens to you, and this happens often, I'm on the wrong layer. I'm on the carrot layer. And you'll notice that this is the only thing that's on the carrot layer. So you see my selection over here in the layers panel. I'm selected on the carrot layer, and that's why it's giving me this message, because it's saying, hey, there's nothing here, because, well, there's nothing there. If you look at the thumbnail over there, it's only that little circle that we cut out earlier. So I'm going to click OK, and then I just need to make sure I click on the base layer right there, and then go up to Layer, New, Layer via Cut. So now if I undo the eyeball, there's my blueberry. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and name this blueberry. All right. My next step is I'm going to combine those two things to make the actual eyeball. So I'm going to undo the eyeball on the base layer in my layers panel, and then select carrot, and then do the eyeball there. Okay, so now I just have those two objects on my image. I'm going to grab the Move tool, and I'm going to select the blueberry, and then I'm going to notice how my mouse changes just slightly. So that's to rotate the image, that's to resize the image, and then when you get to this cursor where you have the kind of the cross arrow and then the pointer, that's the move. That's how you move things. So I'm just going to click it from there. Click it from there, and then you're going to notice that it's disappearing behind the carrot. Where'd it go? Well, that's because my blueberry layer over here in the layers panel is underneath the carrot layer. So think of layers as a sandwich. What goes on top, is what is seen. So all I need to do is click my blueberry layer and move it above the carrot layer. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to move it over to my eyeball, just like that. And if I use my arrow key, I can kind of center that in there just a little bit cleaner, a little bit more centered there. So there's one eyeball. Okay. Now, these two layers, the blueberry and the carrot, they're separate layers. But I need them to be one layer so that my two eyeballs are connected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the blueberry layer and then hit the shift key and then also select the carrot layer at the same time. Then I'm going to right click on that in the layers panel, right click on those layers. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say down here, it's going to say merge layers. So I'm going to select merge layers. And then instead of blueberry, I'm going to rename this and I'm going to say this is going to be the left eye. Okay, because we're going to make a right eye as well. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're still using our marquee or our move tool over here. I'll show you a shortcut real quick. We're going to hit the Alt key. And when you hit the Alt key in the move tool, you're going to see your cursor change to two double arrows. One's white, one's black. This means that you're just duplicating your selection. So by doing this, I'm going to click and drag, and we're going to end up with two eyeballs. Pretty cool, right? So next, I'm going to go ahead and show our melon layer there. Okay, so I can place our eyeballs where they need to go. In my layers panel, I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift, and you'll notice that, actually before we do that, I'm going to make sure that I rename this. This is the right eye. Okay, so next I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift, select, so the left eye and the right eye. And that way I can just move them over, and you notice that my eyeballs disappear beneath the melon. So over in my layers panel, I need to move those above the melon layer. And so now I get my two eyes. They're not big enough, and with those two selected, if I hit the shift key and in the corner, click and drag those, it'll resize both at the same time for me. And that way I'm saving some time, and they end up being the same exact size that I want them to be, so I don't have one eye that's bigger and one eye that's smaller. So I think I'm going to go ahead and go with that, and then hit the Enter Return key before moving forward. Before I go any further, though, I want to make sure that I don't lose my work accidentally due to some power failure or some kind of glitch in my system. So I'm going to go ahead and go File, Save As real quick, and save that in my Melonhead folder where you saved it before. You're saving this just as a Photoshop file. That's what should come up. It should say PSD, and we're just going to save this as Melonhead. And click Save. And OK. So now we can save as we go, just in case we don't want to lose anything, in the future. So I need to go to my next steps, and what I need to do then is I'm going to undo the eyeballs there on the those shapes that I just cut out, and then redo the eyeball on the layer of the base layer, so then I can see the rest of the things that I need to cut out. So I'm going to go ahead and Control Tab over to our instructions and scroll down here. What I'm looking for is we're going to do the mouth, and we're going to use this sliced kiwi to do the mouth. This time, though, I'm going to go ahead and use a different tool to cut out the mouth. In the instructions, it's going to tell you to use the elliptical marquee tool again. But I'm going to introduce you to other tools, selection tools that will be helpful along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and Control Tab over to Photoshop again. And we're looking for this tool, because the reason why I don't want to use the elliptical marquee tool is the kiwi isn't a perfectly circle. It's not a perfect circle, and it's got some, kind of edges there in there. The other thing about this selection as well is that it's got some, it's got some lines here that you got the gray underneath it and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to zoom in real quick, zoom in more than normally. You're going to see it's going to start to pixelate because this image is actually kind of small. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can use that magnetic lasso tool again. and see what happens. So I'm just going to click around. And so it looks like it's going to do its job. It's going to get a little jagged here, and I'm kind of going fast just to see how it's going to turn out, and then select that. This one might work for us. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control D. I'm going to try another tool first, though. Underneath the elliptical, underneath the magnetic lasso, you're going to find this little wand tool, or it might even be this tool right here for the time being. If you click on this, these tools are kind of similar. I'm going to start with a quick selection tool and then see what we get. You notice that my size here is really large. The size of that is about the size of that kiwi. So up here you have some settings, and I need to make sure, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I'm on the plus brush there, and I'm going to change my brush size to something that's smaller, probably about, let's try 5 pixels, get all the way down to 5 pixels. That'll work. Okay, and then I'm just going to kind of go around here, and you'll notice that it selects all the green. It's going to select all the green pixels, and it's not going to select the white pixels or the gray pixels underneath it. So that looks like it's going to work for what I want it to do. So my next step is to go up to Layer New and Layer via Cut. Kind of the same process there. And before I, keep going, I'm going to make sure I move this layer up above our melon layer. And then I'm also going to rename it. And then this one's going to be the kiwi. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and undo the eyeball there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and finish out cutting out the rest of my shapes in our deal. And I'm going to end up using some different tools. In the instructions, it's going to give you, it might tell you to use another tool. I'm just going to go through and experiment with the different types of selection tools that we have to see what works best. I'm going to start with the nose next, and this is kind of like a pear, I believe, or maybe something else, I don't know. And because of the color of this pear, I think the quick selection tool will also work here as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and select. I'm going to show you something real quick too before we cut this out. So you might end up doing something like that. Oops. Oh, I didn't like that. Oh, I didn't like that at all. Oh, I know why. Because I'm still selected on the kiwi layer. Remember how I said this happens all the time. Select that base layer again, and then we're going to select that. So what you're going to see here is notice that my marching ants falls outside of that nose. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the minus tool, and I'm going to get rid of that extra, loop there that came about when I was selecting it. Okay. You can even come down here and fine tune what happens down here. So make sure you don't end up with some of that gray and that shadow of that image. And then same thing, we're going to go Layer New, Layer via Cut. Okay. Move this above the melon. Change that to nose. All right, and then undo the eyeball there. And next, I'm going to go ahead and change this from the quick selection to the magic wand tool so you can see how this works as well. You notice that the paintbrush size is gone, and make sure I'm also clicked on the base layer once again. And because again we have a nice white contrasting background with this slice of grapefruit, this should work pretty well for us. So what I'm going to do is click on it, and you'll notice that the magic wand tool only selected that white. So maybe this isn't going to be the best tool, actually. In fact, as I try to select other things, because the image is slightly pixelated, the magic wand tool here is not going to be the best option. So my next option here is to try that quick selection tool. I'm going to go ahead and try that. And it's going to want to grab some extra stuff. So this tool, not going to be the best option here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control D to deselect. And let's try the magnetic lasso tool here. Let's see what we get. So not the best cutout. Notice as I'm going around that it's snapping and I just passed that. Let's see. So I don't know if that magnetic lasso tool is not going to be the best tool. So I'm going to hit Control D to deselect that. For a simple shape, this should be a lot easier, we would think, right? So these three tools here are oftentimes good for things that are like, we have the circles that we did, and we have, the shapes that were, the colors were nice contrast, but this white from the grapefruit is causing our tools to not recognize the right pixels there. And because of the irregular, pixels in there, it's also creating problems for those selection tools. So we're going to have to actually go into our pen tool. You notice that our selection tools up here, those are all on the top, but then we have the pen tool down here. The pen tool is a multi-purpose tool, and it's great for a lot of different things, but it's also great for selecting objects and cutting out objects closer to how you want them. It's a little bit tricky though, because once we start, we're going to have to use our keyboard to do different things. So I'm going to start with starting in a corner, and when we start with the pen tool, you start with your point, and it's essentially going to create straight lines at first. Okay, so we do one point and the next point, and it creates a straight line. And so, but what I need to do is bend a line right in here. So to do that, I'm actually going to go ahead and click all the way over to this corner over here. And then you'll notice that it creates a straight line straight across. I'm going to take my cursor, my mouse, and find the center point approximately of that line, and click and then put another point in there. And what this is going to give me the option to do is to bend this line when I do that. Now to bend the line, I need to hit my control key or my command key to change my cursor from the pen to the arrow. So see how that works? So when my key is turned to the arrow, I'm going to click. I'm holding down the control key, and I'm holding down my mouse, and I'm clicking, and I'm moving that up. Okay? And then the first thing you're going to notice is we have some handles here that resize. So I can bend this curve out a little bit more to mirror that bend in the grapefruit. And then on this side, I'm going to do the same thing. Now, because this image is a little pixelated, I'm not going to worry about grabbing these tiny little pixels over here. If I want to, I can add another point on this side right there, and then slightly bend that out to grab some more of those. But I'm not going to worry about that too much, because I think we'll be okay really in the end. Now I have to complete this loop all the way back to the beginning. So notice that this point right here, when I hover my mouse over this point right here, I get the circle. I just hit click, and then it gives me my selection. But now what you're going to see is you're not going to see the marching ants right away. It's going to look as if it's still lines, and that what it is that's a path. What we need to do is change that from a path to a selection. So inside this path, I'm going to hit right. I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to hit make selection, and it's going to give me a little menu, and just click OK. We don't want any feather radius or anything like that, so we're just going to click OK, and then you should see those marching ants. Okay, it's not perfect, it's not exact, but because of the pixelation of this image, we're going to have to take it the way it is. So then we're going to go up to our layer new and layer via cut, and again I'm going to move this above the melon layer, and then I'm going to name this grapefruit. We'll have to duplicate this layer later on for 2 ears, but for now we're just going to name it grapefruit. So if you click on and off there, you should be pretty close to that, and in fact if we undo the base layer there, you can kind of see how our ear is going to turn out. So the next part that we're going to cut out is we're going to cut out the bow tie. And the bow tie is not actually a piece of fruit, it's just a piece of bow tie pasta, which is perfect, right? For this one, I think what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the magnetic lasso tool, just to see if we can do this quicker than using, say, like the pen tool with these ridges right along here. So I'm actually going to start kind of in the middle of the bow tie over here, and then see how this tool works out with the, and if I have to, with the magnetic lasso tool, I can click, and rather than just let the tool carry, I can click around these sections to put in those points that I want to put in. So, I mean, sometimes the magnetic lasso tool works really nicely and it grabs those points that we want automatically. I mean, that's why it's called magnetic lasso tool, because it works like a magnet. But other times it doesn't recognize the pixels, the pixel variations. So if you see as I'm going through in this tutorial here, there's kind of a drop shadow around this left side of the bow tie. And what that does is it makes it hard for the program to recognize the different hues in you know, the from the pixels there. So that's one of the challenges in using images that aren't of high quality and high res, is you get this pixelization as you zoom in, and especially if you have colors, you know, you can really see the squares that I'm going around here. That's because I'm zoomed in about 1200%. And you know, when you start to zoom in really closely to an image, and it's not a high quality image, this is what you start seeing, and you really get the sense of how this tool works by doing it and zooming it in this way. And that how Photoshop works. Photoshop is what's called a lossy program, and it's pixel based, so it's not vector like Illustrator, and meaning that, you know, Illustrator uses, instead of pixels, it uses equations to map out shapes and lines and all that kind of stuff. Photoshop uses pixels, and that means it's all these squares, all those dots per inch. When we talk about DPI or resolution, that's what we're talking about. In Illustrator, you don't really have to worry about that because it's not a DPI-based program, so it's vector-based. So I just close that off. So it looks like my magnetic lasso tool worked pretty well. So again, we're going to go back to that same step. We're going to go Layer, New, Layer, via Cut, and that's going to give us our bow tie. And if you unzoom that, and I'm just going to see how that turned out real quick, and zoom. I'm going to hit Control 1. That'll be, that's actually 100%. Whenever you hit Control 1, that goes back to like kind of the original size of the image. So you can see that, you know, far away, it looks pretty good. As we zoom in, that'll probably be okay. I think we'll be fine there. But, you know, as we zoom even further, you know, when we get to that really big number, that's what's going to happen. Okay. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit there, and I'm going to undo the eyeball and then do the eyeball again for our base layer. And we just have two shapes left. I'm going to move that layer I just cut out real quick, move it above the melon, and then rename it. And that's just going to be the bow tie. And go back to my base layer, select my base layer again. And then I'm going to go ahead and do these eyebrows. Yeah, they're very bushy eyebrows, and if you look closely, it's actually a batch of radishes. So that's the red is the radish, and then that's kind of like the plant that grows above the ground as a radish. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in because I really want to get a good look there. And this one might be kind of tricky. I think this one might be the trickiest one just because it's smaller. It is a little bit pixelated there. We can try the magnetic lasso tool. I'm going to go ahead and switch over. Before I do the magnetic lasso tool, I'm going to use a quick selection tool and grab all that. And that looks like it's going to work pretty well. Notice over here on the right hand side though, where the radishes are, I've got a little overhang there. I'm going to hit the minus, make sure I'm on the minus, and then just try to get rid of some of that white so we don't have any white overlap. And I think that'll work pretty well. So I'm going to go up to Layer, New, Layer, via Copy, and move that once again above the melon, and change that to radishes. And last but not least, I'm going to undo the eyeball there, base layer, and then we're going to do the hat. So this is a mushroom, and it's going to end up looking like a chef's hat is the top of our melon. This one actually should be pretty easy. We could use a couple different tools here. I think the quick selection tool might be the best method. The magnetic lasso tool might also work really well in this scenario. It's going to just kind of grow around there, but I think to get the cleanest, notice I just kind of click that just to get out of it. That's what you'll find with the magnetic lasso tool. If you're in the middle of a selection and you can't get rid of it, just double click, complete the circuit, and then Control D to get out of that to undo the selection. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the quick selection tool again. I'm going to keep it at that 5 pixels and grab all that stuff there. And there we go. Don't mind the voices in the background. Try to edit those out here. Hit the minus tool and then just go around there and take care of the edge there that we got a little extra of. In fact, if you kind of want to make this hat look more authentic and look more like a hat, we've got this kind of little lump right here down in the corner. Just maybe take away a little bit more so it smooths it out. Kind of looks like more a hat. So I'm going to just take away that little bottom piece down there on the bottom of that little mushroom. And then right up there, looks like I just noticed. So then I'm just going to go up to Layer, New, Layer via Cut, and move that above Melon. Change that to, rename that to Mushroom. And that's it. I think that should take care of all of our shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out real quick. Just make sure. So I'm hitting Control minus, undo the eyeball and mushroom, go back to our base layer, and boom, look at that. We got all our shapes cut out. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer. Don't need it anymore. So on base layer, I'm just going to delete. And that way I have just a blank surface, a transparent surface to work with. And then I'll be able to click on these eyeballs and start building my melon head. Okay, so now that I have all of our pieces cut out and labeled in our layers panel over here, I'm just going to go ahead and click on all these eyeballs and these layers so that I can see all the different shapes and things that I cut out. And I'm going to go ahead and start moving some of these things in place. So I'm just going to grab the Move tool, and you select a layer, select an object by selecting a layer in the Layers panel. So I selected that kiwi layer right in there and position that, kind of where you think the mouse should go in the melon. And you can always move this stuff later and play around with sizing and stuff as you go along. I'm going to go ahead and grab the nose and kind of start building out, where I want things to go. The nose looks like it's going to be a little small. So I'm going to go ahead and stretch that out a little bit. I'm going to hit the Shift key and grab a corner of the nose so it does it, in proportion with the aspect ratio. If you screw up by any chance, just hit the Enter Return key and then hit Control Z, and it'll go back to the way you had it. So if you ever need to change something and you screw something up, that's how you work that. So I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, and there we go. Position that in between the eyes there, like so. I think I'll go ahead and leave. Maybe I should make the mouth just a little bit bigger so it kind of looks like we're all in the same boat here. There we go. Kind of position that there in the center. And next I'm going to go ahead and grab the bow tie and move the bow tie just a little bit below. And so I can already see right now I'm not going to have enough room for the mushroom hat or the bow tie. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the canvas size here so I can give myself enough room. I'm going to change this to pixels. And so you notice my width is 500, my height is 343. I'm just going to go ahead and make this a square. So I'm just going to go ahead and add 500 pixels to the top and bottom of this image. So that'll give me a little more room to add my bow tie and my hat. And then at the end of this, I'll trim it down using the crop tool. Then I'm going to grab the mushroom, and that's his little chef hat looking thing. Going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger since I've made my whole melon head look a little bit bigger. Looks pretty good. And then the next thing I need to do is put the eyebrows in and the ears. I'm going to go ahead and do the eyebrows first. I will need to go back and make a slight adjustment to the ears. I'll talk about that in just a sec. So I'm going to grab the radishes layer, and I'm going to go ahead and put it, kind of position it over the one. Now we just have the one eyebrow, so we need to duplicate this layer. So again, to duplicate a layer with our move tool, you're going to press the Alt key. So your arrows, your key should change right in there. Just click and drag that, and that'll duplicate a layer. But now we have a problem. This eyebrow is going the wrong direction. So I'm going to go up to Edit, and we're going to go ahead and say Transform, and we're going to flip horizontal. So that way it flips on that horizontal axis, and we have the two radish bundles kind of like right in the middle there, and we have those bushy eyebrows going towards the top, and that way the eyebrows are actually kind of similarly shaped as well. Next, I'm going to go ahead and grab the grapefruit, and we need to do a couple things. One, we need to rotate it, but before we rotate it, I realized that we should have just cut out the pink area. That'll give it more of an ear shape versus like, with kind of the white around here on the edge of the, the pulp or whatever of the grapefruit. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the magnetic lasso tool and see if I can do this quickly. And oops, hang on, screwed up there. Command D. Got a little crazy with the mouse there. I'm going to go ahead and start in that corner there and kind of drag it around. And again, if you need to, do a click or two to get a point in because it's not recognizing what you want it to do. So it's, because it's grabbing like a different part of the picture or the pixel or something. Just go ahead and do that. And just kind of drag it along there. Got to go all the way across and then connect it. Get that square going. And then the way I need to do this is going to be a couple steps here. I could just take my move tool and then drag this out like that, and then I'd get my earpiece. But then I'm going to have to take care of this guy again. I'm going to have to delete it out or something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control Z, and instead I'm going to go up to Select, and I'm going to select Inverse. So what it's going to do is right now I'm just selecting the selection on the inside, which is this grapefruit piece, the center of the grapefruit, but I want to select the stuff that's on the outside of it. So we're going to do that by selecting Inverse. And so that's going to select all the stuff that's outside of that pink grapefruit. So all I need to do then is just to hit delete, and it's going to get rid of the rest of that stuff that I don't need. So then I'm going to hit Command D or Control D to get rid of the marching ants. And then now I can rotate this and kind of position this where I want it to go on the melon head. I also want these ears to kind of go behind the melon instead of over the top, so I can hide that a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit the Enter Return key for now, and then in the Layers panel, I'm going to drag the grapefruit down below the melon layer. So now that when I position the ear, it's actually going to go behind the melon and look a little bit more like an ear, a little more natural. And then I can kind of play around with how that fits, on the ear or on the head itself, and play around with that angle and where I want it to go. I think that'll look just fine right there. So I'm going to hit the Enter Return key, and then I'm going to copy or duplicate that layer by hitting the Alt key, and then clicking and dragging that over and bringing it on the other side of the melon. And then I'm going to do the same thing as we did with the eyebrows and the radish. I'm going to go up to Edit, and we're going to transform, and we're going to flip horizontal, and then we're going to have kind of our symmetrical looking ears. So if you see how my little melon head has turned out, not too shabby. I got maybe a little bit of touch up with the nose there. So if I click on my nose layer, zoom in a little bit, I can look at the little white there, and if I want to take my eraser tool, it's really big, So I'm going to go ahead and drop that down to something a little more manageable. Look how big that is. So if I do something that's around the 6 pixel range, I just got to be careful. Just being around those edges, clean up the white just a tad bit, so it doesn't look like I have something going on there, like it was a sloppy cutout job. And don't want to do it too much so I don't get into fading out that nose entirely. So I'm just kind of lightly with the edges. You can see with my circle there, I'm just lightly getting the edges of that circle next to those whites. And if I zoom out a little bit, you can kind of see that I cleaned it up just a little bit. Enough to where, like, when you do a Control 1 or a Command 1, you're not going to see that at all. And my Melonhead looks pretty good, I think. I'm going to go ahead and crop this. I'm going to take my crop tool and bring that in just a little bit and bring that up just a little bit and then hit enter return, and that'll give me my completed picture. Before I move on, I'm going to hit Control S or Command S, and then I'm going to save this as a JPEG. So right now this is just a Photoshop file. It shows all my layers and all that kind of stuff, and I'm not going to turn it in that way, or you guys won't turn it in that way. We need to see the completed image, and the completed image will be a JPEG. So we're going to go up to File, Save As, and we're going to change that from Photoshop to a JPEG right there, and go ahead and hit Save. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and save it as maximum. It's going to be a small file anyway, but that way we get the full quality of everything, and it doesn't reduce the quality of the image. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. And when I do that as a JPEG, it will insert a white background. That's just kind of standard. I'm going to go ahead and locate that folder that I created for this, and it's right there, Melonhead. Double click that, open that, and you can see if I open my JPEG, there it is. There's my Melonhead. When you resize this in a JPEG and you make it bigger, it's going to pixelate a little bit because of the size, but that's okay. This was just a introductory tutorial on how to use the cutouts and the marquee tools and all that. And that's it for this tutorial. Until next time.